The saddest people in the world aren't always the ones who are alone. Sometimes, they're the ones surrounded by hundreds of people who never truly see them. Emily Carter had no idea that a normal Tuesday afternoon was about to change 3 lives forever. The Grand Crescent Hotel buzzed with energy as guests rolled polished suitcases across the marble floor, business executives hurried toward private meetings, and tourists gathered beneath sparkling chandeliers worth more than most cars. Emily moved between tables carrying trays of coffee, offering warm smiles to strangers she would probably never see again. It was the kind of day that blended into every other day. At least, that was what she thought. Then she noticed the little girl. Sitting near a massive window overlooking the city skyline was a child who couldn't have been older than 8. She wore a pale blue dress, her blonde hair neatly brushed, her tiny hands folded quietly in her lap. Nothing about her appearance seemed unusual, yet something felt wrong. People constantly passed by her table. Some glanced in her direction. Most never looked at all. Not a single person stopped. Not one. Emily found herself watching between orders. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The girl never moved. She didn't play with a phone. She didn't color. She simply stared outside at the traffic below, as if waiting for something that never came. A family sat at the neighboring table. They laughed together. The little girl looked toward them for a moment before lowering her eyes. Something about that brief expression hit Emily harder than she expected. It wasn't anger. It wasn't frustration. It was disappointment. The kind that comes from expecting to be forgotten. Emily approached a coworker near the service station. "Who's the little girl by the window?" she asked. The older waiter barely glanced over. "Her? She comes here a lot. Always alone. Pretty much." Emily frowned. "Where are her parents?" The waiter shrugged. "No clue. Rich family, I guess." Then he lowered his voice. "She's deaf." Emily looked back toward the window. Suddenly, small details made sense. The child never reacted to conversations nearby. She never turned when chairs scraped across the floor. Even the loud crash of a dropped tray earlier hadn't earned a glance. Still, none of that explained why she looked so lonely. Emily returned to work, but her attention kept drifting back. Every few minutes, she caught herself looking toward the same table. The girl remained there, silent, invisible to almost everyone around her. Then something happened that Emily couldn't ignore. A young couple walked past. The little girl offered them a hopeful smile. They never noticed. Her smile slowly disappeared. At that moment, Emily set down the tray in her hands. Her heart tightened. Nobody should look that forgotten. Taking a slow breath, she started walking toward the window, unaware that someone else inside the hotel had already been watching the entire scene very carefully. Sophia did not notice Emily approaching. Her gaze remained fixed on the city beyond the glass, where yellow taxis moved through crowded streets nearly 30 floors below. Sunlight reflected across the window, creating a soft glow around her small figure. Up close, she looked even younger than Emily had first guessed. There was something heartbreaking about the contrast. The hotel was filled with luxury, conversation, laughter, and movement, yet this child seemed completely disconnected from all of it. Emily stopped beside the table. For a moment, she simply stood there, uncertain what to do. Most people would probably offer a smile and walk away. Something told her that would not be enough. Sophia finally sensed someone nearby and looked up. Their eyes met. Emily offered a gentle smile. The girl returned a polite one, though it carried the same sadness Emily had noticed earlier. A silence settled between them. Not an awkward silence. A lonely one. Emily glanced at the empty chair across from her. No parent. No nanny. No friend. Nobody. She remembered what her coworker had said. The child was deaf. Suddenly memories surfaced from years she rarely spoke about anymore. Long afternoons spent learning hand signs. Practice sessions at the kitchen table. Mistakes. Laughter. Patience. Lessons that had once seemed important, then gradually became part of a past she thought she had left behind. Her heart began to race. It had been years since she used sign language regularly. What if she remembered it wrong? What if she embarrassed herself? Sophia lowered her eyes again, expecting the interaction to end like all the others. Emily almost walked away. Almost. Then she slowly raised one hand. The movement caught the girl's attention. Emily formed a simple sign. Just one word. Hello. For a split second, nothing happened. Sophia stared. Her eyes widened. The expression on her face shifted so quickly that Emily nearly missed it. Surprise. Confusion. Hope. The girl's lips parted. She looked around as if trying to make sure she had seen correctly. Emily repeated the sign, this time with a warm smile. Hello. The reaction was immediate. Tears gathered in Sophia's eyes. Not dramatic tears. Not the kind that fall from pain. These were the tears of someone who had waited a very long time for a door to open. Slowly, carefully, Sophia lifted her own hands. Her fingers moved with confidence. Hello, she signed back. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. Around them, the hotel continued its busy rhythm. Guests checked in. Phones rang. Conversations filled the air. Yet for those few seconds, none of it seemed to exist. There was only a little girl who had finally been spoken to in her own language. Sophia's smile grew wider. It transformed her entire face. The sadness that had been sitting there moments ago seemed to fade. Then she signed another question. Do you know sign language? Emily laughed softly. A real laugh she had not expected. Yes, a little, she replied. Sophia's eyes sparkled. For the first time that afternoon, she did not look lonely. What neither of them realized was that from a private seating area across the lobby, a man in a dark suit had just stopped reading an important business report. His attention was fixed entirely on the conversation unfolding by the window. Sophia leaned forward in her chair, as if she had suddenly discovered something precious. Her hands moved quickly, her excitement impossible to miss. Emily had to focus carefully to keep up. It had been years since she used sign language every day. Some signs came back instantly. Others returned like old memories finding their way home. What is your name? Sophia signed. Emily smiled and answered. Emily. Sophia's grin widened. My name is Sophia. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Emily signed back. The little girl laughed silently, her shoulders bouncing with happiness. It was such a simple moment, yet it felt remarkable. Only minutes earlier, she had seemed lost in her own world. Now she looked brighter, lighter, almost transformed. Emily glanced toward the clock near the reception desk. She still had work to do. Orders were waiting. Customers needed service. Yet every time she considered leaving, Sophia asked another question. Do you work here? Yes. Do you like your job? Most days. What is your favorite color? Blue. Mine too. The conversation was simple. Nothing extraordinary. But sometimes the smallest conversations mean the most when someone has been waiting a long time to be heard. Across the lobby, people continued walking by. A few noticed Emily signing. Most did not pay attention. They were busy with their own lives. Busy with meetings, travel plans, phone calls, and schedules. Sophia had probably watched thousands of people pass through these doors. Few had stopped. Even fewer had tried to understand her. Emily suddenly realized something that made her chest tighten. Sophia was not lonely because she was deaf. She was lonely because people had stopped trying. The thought stayed with her. After a few more minutes, a server approached Emily from behind. Table 12 needs help, he said. Emily nodded. Duty was calling. She looked back at Sophia and signed an apology. I have to work. For a brief second, disappointment crossed the girl's face. Then Sophia nodded politely. Of course. Emily started to step away when Sophia quickly raised her hands again. Will you come back? The question hit harder than Emily expected. Not because of the words themselves. Because of the hope behind them. Emily could see it clearly. Sophia was bracing herself for another goodbye. Another person who would disappear. Another connection that would last only a few minutes. Emily crouched slightly beside the table and answered. Carefully. Yes. I will come back when I can. Sophia studied her face, searching for signs of insincerity. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her. A genuine smile returned. Promise? She signed. Emily raised her hand and smiled. Promise. The little girl relaxed immediately. As Emily walked back toward the restaurant area, she felt strangely emotional. She had spent less than 15 minutes talking with Sophia, yet something about the encounter stayed with her. Meanwhile, from the private seating area overlooking the lobby, the man in the dark suit finally closed the report resting on his table. For the first time all afternoon, his attention was not on business. It was on the young waitress who had accomplished something that countless people before her had failed to do. She had made his daughter smile. Sophia returned the next day. Emily noticed her almost immediately. The little girl was sitting at the same table by the window, wearing a bright yellow sweater this time. The moment their eyes met across the lobby, Sophia's face lit up. She lifted her hand and signed a quick hello before Emily could even walk over. That simple gesture stayed with Emily throughout her shift. Somebody was genuinely happy to see her. It was a feeling she had not expected. During her lunch break, she carried a bottle of water and sat across from Sophia for a few minutes. The girl's hands immediately came to life. She had questions about everything. What was Emily's favorite movie? Did she have pets? What did she like to do on weekends? Emily answered each one, smiling more than she had in days. In return, Sophia shared stories about books she loved, places she dreamed of visiting, and her fascination with the clouds she watched from the hotel windows. According to Sophia, every cloud had a personality. Some looked brave, some looked funny, others looked lonely. Emily found herself laughing. The conversation felt effortless. As the week continued, an unexpected routine formed. Whenever Sophia visited the hotel, Emily would stop by whenever she had a free moment. Sometimes they talked for 5 minutes. Other times they managed 15. The length did not matter. What mattered was consistency. For Sophia, those moments became the highlight of her day. For Emily, they became something she quietly looked forward to. One afternoon, Emily arrived at work feeling exhausted. Bills were piling up. Her car needed repairs. She had barely slept the night before. Yet as soon as she stepped into the lobby, she spotted Sophia waiting by the window. The girl immediately signed, "You are late." Emily laughed. "Only 3 minutes." Sophia shook her head dramatically. 3 whole minutes. The playful response surprised Emily. A few weeks earlier, the child had barely smiled. Now she was making jokes. The transformation was impossible to ignore. Other employees noticed it too. One hostess commented that Sophia seemed happier than ever. A bartender mentioned seeing her wave at guests. Even the hotel manager remarked that the girl appeared more confident. Nobody understood exactly why. Emily did. Sometimes people do not need grand gestures. Sometimes they simply need someone willing to meet them where they are. Late one afternoon, as golden sunlight poured through the massive windows, Sophia suddenly asked a question that caught Emily off guard. "Do you think I am strange?" The smile disappeared from Emily's face. She studied the little girl carefully. Sophia looked down at her hands. "Some people look uncomfortable when they find out I cannot hear," she sighed. "Others stop talking to me." Emily felt her heart ache. She knew that kind of loneliness. Maybe not in the same way, but enough to recognize it. Without hesitation, she answered, "No, I think you are smart, kind, and interesting." Sophia looked up. "Really? Really?" The girl's eyes became glossy for a moment. Then she smiled. A quiet smile. A grateful one. Neither of them noticed the man standing several yards away near a column in the lobby. He had witnessed the entire conversation. As he watched his daughter smile once again, Richard Harrison found himself asking a question he had not considered before. Who exactly was Emily Carter, and why was she succeeding where everyone else had failed? Richard Harrison was a man who could command boardrooms, negotiate billion-dollar deals, and influence decisions that affected thousands of employees. Yet none of those accomplishments had prepared him for the helpless feeling of watching his daughter drift further into isolation over the years. He had hired specialists. He had arranged private tutors. He had searched for every possible resource money could provide. Some helped. Many tried. None had created the change he was witnessing now. For nearly 2 weeks, he quietly observed from a distance. Every afternoon, Sophia seemed different. She smiled more. Her posture was more confident. She no longer sat staring out the window for hours. Instead, she waited for Emily. One Thursday afternoon, Richard arrived early for a meeting scheduled in one of the hotel's executive suites. As he crossed the lobby, he immediately spotted Sophia at her usual table. She was looking toward the entrance every few seconds. Waiting. The sight made him pause. Then Emily entered through the employee corridor. Sophia's entire face brightened. Richard noticed something else. The reaction was immediate and genuine. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, just pure happiness. Emily had not even reached the table before Sophia began signing excitedly. Richard could not understand every sign, but he understood enough. His daughter was sharing her day, sharing her thoughts, sharing herself. For years, those moments had become increasingly rare. Curious, Richard approached the hotel manager later that afternoon. "Tell me about Emily Carter," he said. The manager seemed surprised by the question. "Emily? She is one of our best employees. Reliable. Kind. Guests love her. How long has she worked here?" "Almost 3 years." Richard nodded thoughtfully. Nothing in the answer explained why Sophia trusted her so deeply. The mystery only grew. Over the next few days, he paid closer attention. What he discovered surprised him. Emily never treated Sophia differently from anyone else. She was patient, but not patronizing. Friendly, but sincere. She listened carefully to every story, every question, every observation. Most importantly, she never appeared interested in who Sophia's father was. In fact, Richard became increasingly convinced that Emily had no idea who he was at all. That realization fascinated him. Many people changed their behavior around wealth and status. Emily never did. One afternoon, he watched from across the lobby as Sophia excitedly showed Emily a drawing she had made. The picture was simple. Two figures standing beside a large window. One was clearly Sophia. The other was Emily. Above them, written carefully in colorful letters, was a single phrase. My friend. Richard felt something tighten in his chest. He could not remember the last time Sophia had called someone that. As Emily admired the drawing, Sophia looked happier than Richard had seen her in years. In that moment, a difficult truth settled over him. Emily had given his daughter something money had never been able to buy. Connection. Belonging. Hope. Standing near the elevator, Richard made a quiet decision. The time had come to stop watching from a distance. Soon, he would introduce himself. What he did not realize was that another revelation was approaching, one that would explain exactly why Emily understood Sophia's loneliness so well. The opportunity arrived sooner than Richard expected. One quiet afternoon, the hotel restaurant was unusually calm. Most guests had already finished lunch, leaving only a handful of occupied tables. Sophia and Emily sat near the window, talking through sign language as they often did. Richard watched for several minutes before finally gathering the courage to approach. The moment he reached the table, Sophia smiled and immediately signed a greeting. Emily looked up, surprised to see the well-dressed man standing beside them. There was something familiar about him, though she could not place it. Richard returned Sophia's smile before turning to Emily. I hope I am not interrupting. Emily shook her head. Not at all. Richard took a slow breath. I wanted to thank you. Confusion crossed Emily's face. For what? Richard glanced toward his daughter. For helping Sophia. Emily looked at the little girl, then back at him. She is wonderful. I have not really done anything special. For a moment, Richard simply studied her expression. The sincerity was unmistakable. She genuinely believed that. You have done more than you realize, he said quietly. The conversation remained brief because Emily needed to return to work. Still, something about the exchange stayed with Richard. Later that evening, curiosity led him to ask the hotel manager another question. Had Emily always known sign language? The answer surprised him. She learned years ago because of her younger brother, the manager explained. Richard listened carefully. Emily's brother, Noah, had been born deaf. Growing up, she spent countless hours learning how to communicate with him. Sign language became a natural part of daily life. Then, several years earlier, Noah passed away after a long illness. The loss had deeply affected her family. Richard sat quietly after hearing the story. Suddenly, pieces began falling into place. Emily did not connect with Sophia because of training or obligation. She connected with her because she understood. Not every detail, not every experience, but enough to recognize the loneliness that comes when communication becomes a barrier between someone and the rest of the world. The next afternoon, Richard found himself watching another conversation between the two. This time, he noticed details he had previously missed. The patience in Emily's expressions. The way she waited for Sophia to finish every thought. The respect she showed during every interaction. None of it felt forced. None of it felt practiced. It came from somewhere deeper. At one point, Sophia asked Emily why she had learned sign language. Emily hesitated for a moment before answering honestly. She signed about her brother. She spoke about how much she loved him. She shared memories that still made her smile. As the story unfolded, Sophia listened with complete attention. Then something unexpected happened. The little girl reached across the table and gently squeezed Emily's hand. No words, no signs, just understanding. Emily blinked rapidly and smiled. Richard looked away for a moment, overwhelmed by a feeling he had not expected. Gratitude. For years he had worried that Sophia would never find someone outside the family who truly understood her world. Yet somehow, through a series of ordinary moments, that person had appeared. What Richard did not know was that their growing friendship was about to face its first real test, one that neither Emily nor Sophia would see coming. Sophia was not at the window the next day. At first, Emily did not think much of it. People had schedules. Plans changed. Appointments came up unexpectedly. She assumed the little girl would arrive later in the afternoon, as she sometimes did. During her break, Emily glanced toward the familiar table. It remained empty. An hour later, she checked again. Still nothing. By the end of her shift, the chair by the window sat untouched. The absence felt strange, more noticeable than it should have. The following day brought the same result. No Sophia. Emily tried to focus on work, but her attention kept drifting toward the lobby. Each time the entrance doors opened, a small part of her expected to see a blonde girl rushing inside with an excited smile. Each time, disappointment followed. By the third day, concern had replaced curiosity. Emily knew she had no right to demand answers. She was not family. She was not a guardian. Yet she could not ignore the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. What if something had happened? What if Sophia was sick? What if she thought Emily had forgotten her? The last thought bothered her most. During lunch, Emily found herself replaying their final conversation. Had she said something wrong? Had she missed a sign or misunderstood a feeling? The questions lingered with no answers. Meanwhile, the lobby seemed different without Sophia's presence. The window table felt strangely empty. The routine that had quietly become part of Emily's days had vanished. Several co-workers noticed her distraction. One asked if everything was okay. Emily simply smiled and said she was tired. The truth felt harder to explain. How could she describe missing someone she had only known for a few weeks? Late that afternoon, she walked past the window and paused beside the empty chair. Memories flooded back. Sophia laughing about clouds. Sophia showing her drawings. Sophia teasing her for being 3 minutes late. The silence felt heavier than expected. Emily sighed and returned to work. The next morning brought rain. Gray clouds covered the skyline beyond the hotel windows. Guests hurried inside, carrying umbrellas, while staff members moved quickly through the busy lobby. Emily had just finished helping a customer when she noticed a familiar figure entering through the main doors. Her heart lifted instantly. Richard Harrison. Alone. Emily looked behind him, expecting Sophia to appear. She did not. Richard approached calmly, though there was something different in his expression. Something serious. "Do you have a few minutes?" he asked. Emily nodded. Concern immediately surfaced. "Is Sophia okay?" Richard looked surprised by the speed of the question. Then he smiled softly. "She is safe." Relief washed through Emily. She had not realized how worried she had become until that moment. "Then where is she?" Richard glanced toward the quiet table near the window. For several seconds, he seemed to choose his words carefully. "There is something I need to explain." Emily felt her pulse quicken. Whatever he was about to say, she knew it would change something. Outside, rain tapped gently against the glass while guests continued moving through the lobby. Inside, a conversation was about to begin that would reveal truths Emily never expected to hear. Richard invited Emily to sit with him in a quiet lounge area overlooking the rain-covered city. The atmosphere felt calm, yet Emily could sense the importance of the moment. She folded her hands together and waited. Richard looked out the window for a second before finally speaking. "The first thing you should know is that Sophia is doing well." Emily nodded, relieved once again. "Then why has she not been here?" Richard smiled faintly. "Because she has been talking about you nonstop." The answer caught Emily completely off guard. Richard continued. "A few days ago, I had to take her with me on a business trip. We have been traveling between several cities. Every day she asked when she could come back. Every day she asked if she would see you again." Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never imagined her presence meant that much to the little girl. Richard reached into a folder beside him and pulled out several sheets of paper. They were covered in colorful drawings. He handed them to Emily. As she flipped through them, her eyes widened. Nearly every drawing featured the same two people. Sophia and Emily standing beside the hotel window. Sophia and Emily laughing together. Sophia and Emily looking at clouds. One picture showed a large heart drawn between them. Emily blinked several times as emotion threatened to overwhelm her. "She drew all of these?" Richard nodded. During the trip, silence settled between them for a moment. Then Richard leaned forward slightly. "There is something else you should know." Emily listened carefully. "For years, I worried about her. His voice softened. Not because she is deaf. Sophia is strong, intelligent, brave. What worried me was the loneliness. Emily understood immediately. She remembered the little girl sitting alone by the window, invisible to everyone around her. Richard continued. People often focused on what made her different. Very few people took the time to understand her. His eyes met Emily's. You did. Emily looked down at the drawings resting in her lap. I only talked to her. Richard shook his head gently. No. You saw her. The words hung in the air. Simple. Honest. Powerful. For a moment, Emily found herself unable to respond. Richard reached for another sheet of paper. This one contained careful handwriting beneath a colorful picture. She wanted me to give this to you. Emily accepted it carefully. The note was short. Thank you for being my friend. I miss you. Sophia. Tears gathered in Emily's eyes. She smiled through them. She really wrote this? Richard nodded. She insisted. Several seconds passed before either of them spoke again. Finally, Richard smiled. Actually, there is one more thing. Emily looked up. What is it? A spark of amusement appeared in his eyes for the first time. Sophia convinced me to organize a special event next week. Emily looked confused. An event? Richard nodded. She has a surprise planned. And according to her, you are the most important guest. Emily laughed softly, uncertain what any of it meant. Yet as she looked at Sophia's drawings one more time, she felt something she had not expected when she first approached a lonely girl by a window. She felt like she belonged in someone's world. The special event took place the following Saturday evening in one of the hotel's elegant ballrooms. Emily almost did not attend. She still felt unsure about why she had been invited. As she stepped inside, she immediately noticed families, community leaders, educators, and several guests from local organizations gathered throughout the room. Soft music filled the space. Warm lights reflected from crystal chandeliers overhead. Everything felt carefully planned, yet she still had no idea what Sophia's surprise could be. Then she saw her. Sophia stood near the front of the room wearing a beautiful blue dress, her eyes searching through the crowd. The moment she spotted Emily, her face lit up exactly as it had on that first day by the window. Without hesitation, she hurried across the room and wrapped her arms around Emily. The unexpected hug brought instant tears to Emily's eyes. Sophia stepped back and quickly began signing. I am so happy you came. Emily smiled. I would not miss it. A few minutes later, Richard stepped onto a small stage. The room gradually grew quiet. He welcomed everyone and thanked them for attending an event dedicated to inclusion, communication, and understanding. Emily listened politely, still unaware of where the evening was heading. Then Richard surprised her. He began telling a story. He spoke about a little girl who spent years feeling unseen despite being surrounded by people. He described the loneliness that often comes when others focus on differences instead of possibilities. The audience listened closely. Then Richard spoke about a young woman who stopped walking one afternoon. A woman who chose kindness when it would have been easier to keep moving. Emily's heart started racing as she realized the story was about her. Richard looked directly toward her. Sometimes a single moment changes a life, he said. Not because of wealth, not because of status, simply because someone decides to care. The room erupted into applause. Emily felt completely overwhelmed. She never wanted attention. She had never expected recognition. Yet the greatest surprise was still waiting. Richard stepped aside and invited Sophia onto the stage. The little girl stood confidently before the crowd. A large screen behind her displayed one of her drawings. It showed two figures standing beside a window. Emily recognized it immediately. Sophia took a breath and began signing. An interpreter standing nearby translated for the audience. Before I met Emily, I felt invisible sometimes. People talked around me. They looked past me. Emily talked to me. She listened to me. She became my friend. The room fell completely silent. Tears appeared on many faces. Then Sophia turned toward Emily and signed one final message herself. No interpreter was necessary. Emily understood every word. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for staying. You are my best friend. Tears streamed freely down Emily's cheeks. She signed back the same word she had used the day they first met. Hello. Sophia laughed through her own tears. In that beautiful moment, the circle felt complete. What began with one simple sign had become something neither of them expected. A friendship, a family connection. A reminder that the greatest gift one person can offer another is not money, influence, or success. It is making someone feel seen. And for the first time in a very long time, both Emily and Sophia knew exactly what that felt like.